Well, just when you thought it was going to be a boring month or so involving Notre Dame football, Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, leaves for Alabama, and now a coaching search underway to fill a seat at Marcus Freeman's table. All right, let's go step by step. Let's go back first. Give me your thoughts through the years, Tommy Rees, the recruiter, and maybe how it changed a little bit under Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here. Reese has always been a good recruiter. I think the question has been, going back to his days under Kelly, and I've talked about this a lot, is, when Brian Kelly was the head coach of Notre Dame, and I always said this about him too, he was a very good recruiter when he did it. The problem was he was not like this grinder on the recruiting trail. And I don't care if we're talking about college football or working at Home Depot. If your boss is not, a grinder in a certain area, that's going to trickle down to his or her staff, that they're not going to be grinders in that area too. So when Brian Kelly is not, a dog on the recruiting trail, it's hard for him to demand that to his coaching staff, right? He's not really leading by example, or I guess he is. It's just not the example that should be set. But when Marcus Freeman comes on board as Notre Dame head coach, I mean, he is not, he's not going to allow for slacking off on the recruiting trail. So I think you definitely saw an uptick in Rees's work ethic, for the lack of a better term, on the recruiting trail. And the proof has been in the pudding, Darren. In the past, what has it been, 7 months, 8 months? I mean, landing CJ Carr in the 24 class, flipping Kenny Minchie from Pittsburgh, and then going out and getting On3's number 1 overall transfer in the offseason, Sam Hartman. I mean, does it get much better than that? I mean, that's a fantastic several months for Rees. So, it's a mixed bag for Rees these past several years, Darren. I mean, you look at the production and, the numbers aren't great, but then you go, oh, well, I mean, he's kind of doing with what he's got, right? I mean, he's built this offense around the talent that Notre Dame has, but then you go to the other side of it. Well, I mean, he's been the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. It's kind of on him, or at least part of it. So overall, I think Rees did a really good job at Notre Dame, but I don't think this is a monumental loss for the Irish by any stretch.
As fans hear all these different coaches who might be in line for an interview with Marcus Freeman, without getting into a name, let me just give you a hypothetical. It's a coach without a great track record as a recruiter, but he's one heck of a play caller and offensive coordinator, maybe even comes from the NFL. Can that be, can you overcome that because Marcus Freeman is so front and center in recruiting nowadays?
Darren, I think people might disagree with me on this.
Okay.
I don't think recruiting is that hard. It's about effort and personality. So, I mean, look, Chancey Stuckey is the perfect example of this. What was it, in 2020 and a couple years before that, he is in the recruiting office at Clemson, not even as an assistant coach. 2021 is the receivers coach for Baylor. And then this year, he's one of the most pivotal coaches on this Notre Dame staff in terms of recruiting. He doesn't have a ton of experience. Notre Dame went from abysmal recruiting class at receiver in 2022 to myself, Tom Lemming, who's a longtime national recruiting pundit, and On3's Charles Powers, who's the director of scouting and rankings. All three of us agreed the best position group for Notre Dame in 2023 was receiver with Chancey Stuckey. So the scenario you just laid out there, and I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, you can be taught how to recruit, and again, it's about effort and personality. If you have those two things, it's not rocket science, Darren. It's not that hard to text recruits who would love to talk to you, right? I mean, so yeah, I'll take that scenario, Darren.
I'm sure it's a lot like trying to be a politician. You have speech writers that write everything for you. You just have to deliver it with personality and belief. And I'm sure there's a structure in place that teaches you to talk properly about Notre Dame and hit the strong suit. So it's probably a lot like running for office.
And, the quarterback position, assuming that Notre Dame would hire a quarterbacks coach / OC, they already have CJ Carr committed. So, and he looks to be locked in. The only reason the only way I could see Carr leaving Notre Dame as if they absolutely botched the offensive coordinator hire, and he is a terrible fit with CJ. I don't think they're going to be hiring Paul Johnson, so it should be okay there. No triple option here, Darren. But yeah, it's a very attractive offensive coordinator position, Darren, and quarterbacks. I mean, that quarterback room, especially for this season with Hartman, assuming Buckner stays around, that's a darn good number 2 quarterback. Don't sleep on Steve Angeli. I've been hearing really good things about him this offseason. I'm not just saying that as, one of his biggest fans, but seriously, like, I'm hearing really good things from sources on the Notre Dame side of things about Angeli. You got Minchie coming in, and then in the future, you have CJ Carr committed, and then the 2025 quarterback. I mean, that's so far away that you can really build your board out. So it's a really attractive spot for a potential coordinator.
Kind of answer this next question partially, but the new offensive coordinator's walking into a great situation. How would you describe the recruiting job in front of him over the next maybe couple of years?
I think the big part of it, Darren, is as things currently stand, the rest of the offensive staff is in place. So, like, when I talk to the Notre Dame commits at running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, they're all good. They're position coaches around. Did they have good relationships with Rees? Sure, but they're the guy that did a huge part recruiting them still around. So the offensive coordinator just needs to get along with CJ Carr, build that connection. And again, CJ, who we'll talk about next, he's got a good relationship with all the other coaches on the Notre Dame staff. I know Chancey Stuckey, who played quarterback in high school. They even have a good connection. So you just build a relationship with Carr, hit the ground running in 2025. You have plenty of time for that. It is seriously, I might not be the biggest Tommy Rees fan, but I'm going to shoot you guys straight. He's leaving the quarterback room at a better place than he found it. Not that I covered Notre Dame when he found the quarterback room, but like it's in a really darn good place when you look at the top with Sam Hartman. And, at the bottom with true freshman Kenny Minchie as an early enrollee, Elite 11 finalist, All-American Bowl invitee. I mean, it's a really good room.
Anytime you lose a coordinator, there's always that fear that the elite recruits are going to start thinking about going somewhere else. And I think you can argue an offensive coordinator / quarterback coach and a quarterback are attached at the hip. You got Tommy Rees leaving. You've got CJ Carr, of course, coming up in this next cycle. He's already committed, and he has been to Notre Dame over and over, Mike. You've documented it. He's almost got a second residence right now here in South Bend. So for all the fans concerned about CJ Carr leaving this class because Tommy Rees left for Alabama, they probably shouldn't be so concerned, because I've heard you talk, Mike, that Carr and Marcus Freeman have a really strong relationship, and it sure seems like CJ has bought into everything that Marcus Freeman wants to do here in South Bend.
Yeah, Carr's been to Notre Dame 10 times. And that's just since I want to say the spring of 21 or so, or maybe a little bit after that. But yeah, I mean, Carr, I mean, he committed to Notre Dame for Notre Dame. And so far, it looks like all the offensive commits did. I mean, Darren, this is a reason why Notre Dame starts off so hot in each recruiting trail. You get players who commit to Notre Dame because they just fall in love with Notre Dame. They get the tradition. They get the history, the academics. They buy into Marcus Freeman's vision. So a coach leaves. Yeah, it stinks. I'm sure CJ Carr would much rather Rees be around, but I mean, he picked Notre Dame because he loves the Fighting Irish. He loves the campus, again, the tradition, the academics, and he wants to build something special in South Bend. So, again, you want to hear Carr talk about the next offensive coordinator till you feel 1,000% good. For now, it's just 95% good. He's a huge piece for Notre Dame moving forward. Just get this offensive coordinator in here, build a relationship with with Carr, and everything should be well.